Hello and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiegue, live today on Monday, May 27th. A quarterback heavy episode today on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. We're going to start off with our regular rankings of the quarterbacks, this time finishing our journey on the AFC West division. Then we'll transition into a different topic. Then later on in the show, we'll talk about Brandon Ayuk and more developments on his contract situation, maybe a asking price range that we can finally target based on the recent reports, and also talking about Aaron Rodgers and how he has stuck up for his offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. He's been the target of some recent reports about his job security and whatnot, so we're going to get into all of that and what Aaron Rodgers had to say on the topic. All of that coming up on today's show. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. And before I jump into the rankings, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments you want to make, please use the tip and donations link you see on your screen, GSMCPodcast.net. By using this, I can read your question on air and that way get your guys' perspective or just point of view on anything I say or any other topics on hand on today's show. It's a massive help for this show, and also we greatly appreciate it anytime you guys are able to use the tip and donations link, GSMCPodcast.net. But in saying that, we can jump right into the rankings, finishing off our quarterback portion of the series at the AFC West, the last one on our journey. A pretty straightforward ranking, so I'll jump right into it. Starting off at number 4 on our rankings, we have a rookie, Bo Nix, at number 4. Why Bo Nix? Well, I know it's supposed to be a quarterback battle per se between Zach Wilson, Bo Nix, and Jarrett Stidham, but Bo Nix was picked this year as the 12th overall quarterback. So with that being said, I think there's been more put on his plate and just more attention brought onto him to be that starter. If you're going to pick him that early, he has to be, I would imagine, the starter or the favorite to start at this point of the offseason. Has more experience now entering the NFL, the most experience out of any rookie quarterback, I'm pretty sure, entering the NFL. After 5 years at college, he is 24 years old. Oddly enough, the same age as Zach Wilson. He came into the league at 22 years old. So different levels of experience. Zach Wilson having more experience at one level, but maybe not as successful as Bo Nix. More time in college, but a little bit more successful than Zach Wilson in that time period. To round off his college career, at Oregon, probably his best season at the college level, 77 completion percentage, over 4,500 yards, and 45 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. As efficient it could get, and to quote Sean Payton, talking about Bo Nix at this point of the offseason, he said he is further along than most rookie quarterbacks he has seen, or just in general, up to this point. So that's a positive thing for Bo Nix. But, the main thing with him, I think he's shown tremendous development since his time at Auburn in the SEC, then going over to Oregon. I think he depended a lot more on his athleticism and running and sort of these panic runs that I've labeled it now, where you feel some sort of pressure quickly and you just decide to run and don't really scan the field for more options. You just tuck it and run it, or maybe just walk right into a sack because you don't really evaluate what's out there, even with some pressure in your face. I think he's gotten a lot better at that. And also, in terms of his ability, athletic ability, I should say, he is pretty sneakily quick and athletic for Bo Nix. I think that's something that hasn't been pointed out too much. When he can run, he is pretty fast, and I think he'll bring that to the Denver Broncos. And just to round it off here, with the state of where the Denver Broncos are right now, not to say that they don't have nothing to lose, but they don't have nothing to lose, really. With the state of this team, last year they finished 8-9, and to somehow think you're going to get better than that with the team that you have right now, you still have some crucial pieces left over, as in Cortland Sutton, Javonte Williams is still there, and just defensively, Pat Surtain is also still there. You still have some core pieces in your facility. Now you're trying to determine who the quarterback is. You might not get the same level, obviously, with Russell Wilson being there and all his experience. But if you get anywhere close to 8-9, and Bo Nix is able to perform decently to get close to 8-9 or anywhere near that, or even better than that, I think would be exceeding so many expectations that I have him at number 4 just because he is a rookie. I expect him to be the starter, and he fills in at the 4th overall spot. Then at number 3, another one that, is a bit of a question mark just because Gardner Minshew, is he the starter right now? If I were to make the decision today, I would probably go with Gardner Minshew. 28 years old, has been in very different situations with the Colts, with the Jaguars. He was with the Eagles as well. So he has seen different schemes, concepts, and it's been around a lot of different environments that I think could help him in adapting to another new environment there with the Las Vegas Raiders. And it is the safer option. You could go with Aidan O'Connell. He showed some flashes last year with some big games. He was the quarterback of their game where they beat the Chiefs, so some people might not put as much stock into that, but I think there has to be something to be said for that performance as well. Everybody contributed to that, so that's one thing you can point to in Aidan O'Connell's case, but I think Gardner Minshew would probably end up for me being my choice. I think you could do more with Minshew because of his exposure to other different scenarios around the NFL. He's been around different coaches and stuff like that, like I mentioned, so to adapt to something new here with the Las Vegas Raiders, I think would suit him very well. And he may not have the most routine displayed arm in the league. He doesn't consistently make wow throws, but there is that term you always hear announcers make on games when Gardner Minshew makes a play, Minshew magic. He sometimes creates something out of nothing, and I think if he could do that here or there with the Las Vegas Raiders, I think it'll go a long way for them. And also, on that topic, similarly, creating those magical sort of plays, extending plays, I think it'll be a lot easier here for Gardner Minshew because compared to what he had with the Colts, an exciting team, a young team with some good players, but here in Las Vegas you have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Jalen Guyton, Michael Gallup, Michael Mayer as well. You have some more options here where I don't think the onus is going to be on Gardner Minshew to carry them. I think more of that is going to be on these skilled players. And credit to the Las Vegas for filling up this roster for Gardner Minshew or whoever ends up being the quarterback to give them as many options as they can to not have so much pressure on them to perform. I think this is a good recipe for Minshew and for the Raiders overall. It's a long-term project. Gardner Minshew is not going to be the long-term quarterback. So with that being said, I think he could do enough this year just to get by, and maybe next year you get your guy. But for right now, Gardner Minshew is the number 3 ranked quarterback in the AFC West. Then moving on to number 2, Justin Herbert. Weird spot with Justin Herbert. Not in terms of my rankings, but where he finds himself in his career right now. I am a big fan of Justin Herbert from his time coming into the league and what he's been able to do early on. He had early success very much with this Chargers team, and fairly, he was tasked with carrying much of the pressure and much of the responsibility for them to win at an early stage of his career. He did very well with it. He excelled at doing it. I'm sure he didn't really think about it too much, just going out there and playing, but I think as more of the season started to pile up, he sort of, not to say that he became tired of it, but having that always be on your shoulders, I think can get to a point where opposing defenses just sort of find a way to corral you a little bit more, put some more pressure on you. Of course, he still had the talent, but I think more teams made it a lot harder for him to perform. And at this point in his career, he hasn't had the accolades or the national spotlight on him too much. He's only made one playoff appearance one time, and it was that bad performance he had against the Jacksonville Jaguars where they gave up that massive lead that they built up in the second half. So not a good last impression in the playoffs. He's the type of talent that you'd think he'd always be there, but he was really forced to carry this team since his rookie year, and now he is 26 years old and enters a new period with the Chargers where Jim Harbaugh comes in, and they're trying to change this sort of style that they have going with this team. not as many eye-catching names on the offensive side of the ball, with Keenan Allen moving on, Austin Eckler moving on, Gerald Everett as well. They've really stripped down this offense, and I think, one, it's a good thing for Jim Harbaugh to just come in with the players he wants, but obviously it's going to take some time to establish itself with Justin Herbert. I think he has all the other talents you need, the arm, the size, the athletic ability. Now he just really needs to stockpile that resume a little bit better to elevate himself back into that conversation with the Joe Burrows, with the Lamars, and get back to the playoffs and perform at that stage. I think he has a good chance of doing it, but there's definitely going to be some hiccups along the way. But he is number 2, and obviously the number 1 quarterback in this division and probably the entire NFL, Patrick Mahomes. Not too much to say about him, honestly. What more can I say to validate, I guess, why he's number 1? He's probably number 1 on a lot of people's quarterback rankings just in general. Multiple-time MVPs, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, all pros, 3-time Super Bowl champion. This guy just stockpiles these records, and more often than not now, I think he is just trying to get that team success. And with the team that they have built up now, the offense looks a bit more balanced to me. How the Rashee Rice situation plays itself out, I think, will be huge, but they've done a good job of bringing in Marquise Brown, drafting Xavier Worthy, getting those guys acclimated to this team. I don't think will be very hard, to be quite honest with you. I expect them to be just as efficient, if not more efficient this year, after a rough period last year where they had some flashes of looking like the Chiefs towards the end, but sometime in the beginning they had their hiccups. I don't think we're going to see that too often this year. They have a difficult schedule, but I still expect them to be one of the top-ranked teams in the AFC, and Patrick Mahomes will be a catalyst for that. He is the game changer. He is why they win games. He embraces that pressure, and that is why he is the number 1 ranked quarterback in this division and in the entire NFL. So that's my list. Let me know what you guys think about it in the live chat box or in the comments afterwards. Not too hard compared to other divisions, but that'll do it for this segment and the quarterback series somewhat. We'll be changing topics in later episodes, but for now, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, more on Brandon Ayuk's contract situation. A price range has sort of been laid out there for the 49ers and around the NFL. Is that a fair price for Brandon Ayuk? We'll discuss it when we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.